15 years ago, if you had Googled Ben Kollenbroich's name, you would have discovered that his life story is the inspiration for Good Luck Chuck, the mid-budget, critically panned romantic comedy starring Dane Cook and Jessica Alba.
You're a lucky charm. You have sex with someone and then they find their true love. Isn't that how it works?
There's just one catch, though. It's not even remotely true. In 2010, Ben Kollenbroich was just a regular 25-year-old guy living and working in Madison, Wisconsin. But the fact that dozens, maybe hundreds of websites and even his own grandmother believed otherwise, it wasn't an accident, a mix-up, or a mistaken identity. It was an intentional and painstakingly implemented prank executed by one of his best friends.
I think I just wanted to with him. I just thought it would be hilarious to create this narrative on the internet of the lore of Benjamin Kollenbroich. But as I created more, it just kind of became more funny.
With time to kill and a dogged commitment to the bit, Ben's buddy Vince cultivated a steady buzz of internet chatter to support his absurd assertion, slowly but inexorably building up the source material needed to keep that fabricated factoid on Wikipedia. But what started as a prank took on a life of its own when Vince's made-up claim started to circulate on the internet of its own volition. Search results for Ben Kollenbroich's name cited him as the inspiration for that awful movie for more than 10 years, and neither of them was capable of doing anything about it. I'm Dusty Weiss from PodCamp Media. This is Lead Balloon, a podcast about epic tales from the worlds of PR, marketing, and branding, told by the well-meaning people who live them. Thank you for tuning in. We've been into some heavy topics on the show lately, and in general, it's been kind of a heavy year. So I wanted to wind things down on a lighter note, if you'll indulge me, because not only is this a hilarious story about youthful hijinks and misinformation on the internet, but this is one that I lived myself. Ben and Vince are both college buddies of mine, and I was getting regular updates as this all played out throughout the course of my mid-20s. But this is a show about the business of communicating and information propagation, so I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that some of the same tactics Vince used to punk his college pal can be leveraged legitimately in a business context to establish credibility, boost SEO, and level up your presence on generative AI answer engines. In fact, it was our discussion with Bill Butler in episode 61 about the future of Wikipedia that got me thinking about this great story from its past. All of that said, to reinforce that if someone asks you why you're laughing in your cubicle today, you're good. This is both a professional development opportunity and an epic troll. So you already met Vince, the prankster, in the introduction, but if you're a longtime fan of the show, you've already met Ben, the victim, as well. He made a brief appearance in episode 4 as our resident Seinfeld expert, and indeed, this story plays just fine as something out of that show as well.
So I was, finishing up school. Vince and I were probably hanging out every day at that point and just trying to become a functioning member of society.
The year was 2009. Ben, Vince, and I were part of a group that had lived on the same floor in the freshman year dorms, hung out regularly through undergrad, and were still hanging around Madison after graduating from the University of Wisconsin. 24, 23 years old, somewhere around in there. I had just started as a radio news reporter, but all of us were still trying to figure out what to do with our lives. And we had reached that golden 20-something peak where we had some income, we had lots of free time, and most of us had very little real-world responsibility. And like the characters in How I Met Your Mother or Friends, every decision we made was weighted in part by whether or not a good story would result.
We had been talking about how, I had girlfriends or dates, and we'd break up and then they'd go on and meet the love of their life. And so I think there was conversation. You're kind of like a Good Luck Chuck with the idea of the movie, which I have never seen.
I don't think you knew what it was.
Because I still have never seen it, even though I'm the inspiration.
You lived it.
I lived it. Yeah, I don't need to see it.
I think that was part of the joy for me too, is that it was such a bad movie.
So I was inspiration for a bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
Women call him Good Luck Chuck.
An irredeemably bad movie, if we're telling the truth. Good Luck Chuck is emblematic of the crude, unlikably mean-spirited teenage gross-out films of the late 90s and early 2000s. Think American Pie, Road Trip, and Dude, Where's My Car?
Dude, where's my car? Where's your car, dude?
Except Good Luck Chuck had come out in 2007, when much of Hollywood had started to move on from that particular phase. Sporting a paltry 19% approval rating on Metacritic and an abysmal 5% on Rotten Tomatoes, the movie stars Dane Cook as Chuck, an ostensibly successful dentist with a reputation. After a woman goes out with him, the next man she meets will be the man she marries.
Buddy, you got the ticket to the big show!
You have 108 messages.
Chuck at first embraces the reputation when it gets out, dallying his way through a parade of desperate one-dimensional caricatures of women before he falls for Jessica Alba's character and starts to see the good luck charm as a curse instead of a blessing.
To get the girl of his dreams, Chuck will do anything.
I've got to put the curse to the test.
With anyone.
This chick ain't never getting married.
Like its alleged protagonist, the movie seems stuck in an immature adolescence well past the point where that could be remotely charming. And while I don't think that's a descriptor anyone would ever reply to Ben Kollenbroich, the offhanded comment about the loose similarity of Ben's dating life stuck in Vince's head and stewed. Vince, you've pulled a few pranks in your day. Where does this one rank in your pantheon, would you say?
Pretty high. This was definitely the most elaborate.
Had you previously done anything with Wikipedia other than just read articles on it? Were you a contributor or an editor or anything
nothing.
like that?
Nothing.
So you weren't familiar with the world of Wikipedia editors.
No, but at that point, it would have been pretty young, I think.
That was just kind of starting to catch on.
I guess I would have known that you can go on there, edit it yourself. But I also kind of knew that not everyone knew that. I also knew that some people would just think, oh my gosh, this is a legitimate website.
So where did you get the idea to log on there and just add this zany thing to punk your buddy?
Are we allowed to swear?
Go for it.
I think I just wanted to with them. I just wanted to with you. I just thought it would be hilarious to create this narrative on the internet of the lore of Benjamin Kollenbroich. And then I'm sure I was just procrastinating or just had some time on my hands.
When Vince is bored, his mind goes places. evil places.
So there wasn't any grand plan, essentially. You just said, I'm going to log on to Wikipedia and see what I can do.
That was kind of the extent of the joke.
With no real experience or grounding in the culture of Wikipedia, Vince logged on and poked around until he found the edit function and added one simple untruth to the top paragraph of the page for Good Luck Chuck. It read, Good Luck Chuck is an American romantic comedy film starring Jessica Alba and Dane Cook. Based on real-life womanizer Benjamin Kollenbroich, the premise of the film is that women will find their one true love after having sex with Chuck. Feeling quite pleased with this act of reputational sabotage, Vince reached out to Ben almost immediately.
I think you emailed me and said, holy cow, I can't believe that you're the inspiration for Good Luck Chuck. How did this happen? And just, obviously I knew it was you, but you're just trying to play dumb.
What was your immediate reaction?
Oh, you scoundrel. I can't believe you did this.
The link to the vandalized Wikipedia page made its way around our circle of buddies. We all had a good laugh, and it probably came out a couple of times at the bar where we hung out. And it stayed at the top of that page for almost 2 months, surviving several dozen other edits to the page because Vince had cannily given his vandalism the appearance of legitimacy. Normally, when Wikipedia editors add a new fact to a page, they're required to back it up with a link to a legitimate source that supports the claim. Vince simply linked his edit to a couple of movie reviews on the BBC and About.com, assuming that no one would actually follow the links and see that there was no information there about Ben. Of course, that's a lot to assume on the internet, and 59 days after he first cited Ben as the inspiration for the movie, an eagle-eyed Wikipedia editor deleted the reference, noting, quote, The source does not mention Benjamin Kollenbroich, and every Google search for him just reveals a derivative of this page.
And that annoyed me.
That incensed you.
Yeah. And so that's when I was like, oh, okay, well, now I got to create a backstory to try to trick the editors. But as I created more, it just kind of became more funny.
Just 45 minutes after his reference to Ben was deleted from the Good Luck Chuck page, Vince was at it again. He added comments mentioning Ben to the film reviews he had linked, and for good measure, had also added one in a review on the Internet Movie Database page that was already cited by the Wikipedia article. In fact, it's still there. You can find it sandwiched between a 2 out of 10 star critique headlined "Painful" and a 1 out of 10 star scorcher headlined "Quite possibly the worst movie I've ever seen."
I'm on Good Luck Chuck's IMDb page. These are really terrible reviews too. He really ripped this one.
Up, Chuck.
So I titled it all in all a pretty good flick. And then I wrote, this was really funny stuff. While I had pretty high expectations of this movie going in, and then parentheses, I wrote, I knew it was based on the Benjamin Kollenbroich story. I was pretty happy with it. Dane Cook did a good job of capturing the obscure humor of the real life character. And then I go on, and the rest of the review has nothing to do with Ben, but I just wanted it to make it look like it was a real review so that it looked like it was just like a throwaway line that it was about the Benjamin Kollenbroich story. Because they talk about how Dane Cook, and I'm not a big fan, Jessica Alba. If you're looking for a serious thriller, this movie is not for you. But they wanted to make it look like a real review.
And then you link back to it from the Wikipedia.
Yeah, and I love that it's still there.
Quite satisfied with his astroturfed sentiment building, Vince added his reference to Ben back to the first paragraph of that Wikipedia page, and that bought Ben one more month of internet infamy until another editor struck the reference. Vince quickly pushed back, again citing the comments that he'd left as sources.
And then I think the Wikipedia editor said something to the effect of, no, that's, you did that. And then you had to go deeper and create a more elaborate backstory.
Because when they would edit it, they would give a reason that there's no source, there's no third-party source for this. And so what I did was then the idea was that the movie was based on a book.
Redoubling his creative efforts, Vince built a full-blown website to support his bogus claim. At goodluckchuckthestory.webs.com, he claimed to be the author of a nonfiction novel entitled The Man from Fort Atkinson, a biography of notorious rascal Benjamin Kollenbroich, upon whose life the movie Good Luck Chuck was based. He also submitted reviews of the book to websites like Amazon and Goodreads. He created a specific Wikipedia page just for the book, The Man from Fort Atkinson, and he linked that and the Good Luck Chuck page back to his newly created website, where he posted a sample first chapter of the supposed novel and a set of scholarly critiques.
Publicized as a, quote, tragedy masquerading as a comedy, end quote, the novel examines the relationships between Benjamin in an anti-chronological account. Examinations of the character's depiction of these relationships reveal symptoms of paranoia and bipolar behavior contrasted with questionable bursts of confidence. I like how I use your last name throughout this. Kollenbroich is consistently cited by critics as one of the most conflicted characters of the emerging 21st century, with a damaged perception of reality and a debilitating logic system, often relying on perverse reasoning and rationalizations. What I love about, if people Google your name, this is what came up. Like, can you imagine being an employer?
Or my grandma.
You're just Googling it. And this coming up and be like, what? Because your name is not common. Like, it wouldn't be, it's not John Smith.
At this point, you'd be forgiven for questioning just how Vince found so much time to dedicate to assassinating his buddy's character on the internet. But Vince says his part-time job at a state agency afforded him more than enough bandwidth to beat back the growing onslaught of well-meaning Wikipedia editors.
I was working a hotline where there would be tons of downtime. And so at that time, I had graduated. I had about 7 or 8 months before I went to law school, or maybe I'd already taken the LSATs. So I just had nothing but time on my hands. Working at the DNR, they're paying me, but the phone's not ringing. Because that was kind of the nature of the job is
you sit and you wait for, it was a tip line, right?
It was a tip line, and we were in a locked area, so that's all we could do and all we had to do. And so I had it when I was in school, and they were like, if you bring your schoolwork, if the phone isn't ringing, you can just do your schoolwork. But that was probably another reason why it got so elaborate. I still had the job, but I graduated. I still had the downtime writing this stuff, writing these summaries and everything, and then uploading it to the internet.
I think eventually, if you had enough time, you would have written a 400-page book.
I think so.
To support it.
Yeah. That would have been the long con.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a pretty long con as it was here, because you invested, I don't know, a couple nights worth of work into this anyway.
Oh, way more than that.
Yeah.
Yes. And I probably just enjoyed it. Like reading back the narrative today, I was enjoying it.
It's well written.
Yeah, I was enjoying writing something that was good and entertaining. And for a long time, I mean, I had made the decision to go to law school, but I wasn't sure. You know, you and I were kind of writing stuff. And then I think I was writing this and I was enjoying it a lot. And I probably just kept continuing because I'm like, well, this is enjoyable. Maybe this is what I want to do. Obviously, I gave up on it at some point. But I think that was part of it, too. It was a funny prank, but then it was actually kind of turning out a good product. It's like, oh, this is sounding good. This is kind of funny. This could be something. And so I just kept going with it.
Kept going with it and going with it and going with it. But then it developed a life of its own. And so, coming up after the break, what happens when Vince decides to pull the plug on his prank? Only to discover that it's gotten beyond his ability to control.
It just didn't stop.
And Ben learns that being the man from Fort Atkinson, the inspiration for a terrible Dane Cook movie, according to the internet, has real-world consequences.
My mom called me and said, your grandma wants to talk to you. She found something online.
That's all coming up in a moment here on Let Balloon.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
So earlier this year, a client cheekily suggested a drinking game for 2025. Anytime someone in a business context uses the word uncertainty, take a shot. And I am pleased to report that I did not agree to those terms, because in the world of business, this year has been an absolute roller coaster. If the roller coaster was in fact rocket powered and the tracks were still being built as we launched. This uncertainty has made a lot of companies pull back on their content marketing and thought leadership efforts. But here's the thing, when everyone else clams up, your voice carries that much farther. And in that sense, there has never been a better time to launch a podcast initiative for your brand. Certainly, we know that here at PodCamp Media, where we help global brands like yours launch B2B and B2C podcasts that work. And we know, too, that fortune favors the bold in times like these. So visit podcampmedia.com and let's get started today telling your brand story.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
This is Let Balloon, and I'm Dusty Weiss. It was 2010, and for 4.5 months, a Wikipedia article about the movie Good Luck Chuck had cited my old pal Ben Kollenbroich as the inspiration for the $25 million critical flop. This was thanks to the dogged determination of our buddy Vince, whose new pastime had become cultivating an entire network of dubious online sources for his misinformation and using them to defend the Wikipedia page from well-meaning editors who might take it down. As they say, however, the internet remains undefeated, and after months of batting away attempts to correct his misattribution, Vince came up against a particularly hard-nosed Wikipedia editor with the handle Liquid Luck. As we learned from Bill Butler in episode 61 of this podcast, many Wikipedia editors take their duty very seriously, and Liquid Luck had amassed a truly impressive body of work on the platform, contributing heavily to articles about other timely pop culture topics, like Justin Bieber, the Pretty Little Liars novels, Miley Cyrus's album Can't Be Tamed, and the Twilight Saga. She struck Ben's mention from the Good Luck Chuck page, citing Wikipedia's Biographies of Living Persons policy, and when Vince tried to undo her edit, she responded within 8 minutes, poking holes in his dicey sources, tagging a Wikipedia bot intended to prevent vandalism, and forcing Vince to create a Wikipedia editor's account just to continue his resistance. In the weeks that followed, Vince traded counterfactual volleys with Liquid Luck, trying to keep the prank alive, but eventually had to relent when she rebuffed his homespun website, retorting, quote, "Free hosting websites such as FreeWebs are not considered reliable." It was April 24th, 2010, when Vince finally allowed himself to concede defeat. And in that moment, he had to admit he was actually kind of ready for the Man from Fort Atkinson's saga to come to an end.
This has gone on too long, and I don't really remember you ever expressing like real anger or like being really upset, but I was like, oh, if this were me, I'd be pretty mad.
For his part, Ben wasn't mad about it. Like the rest of us, he mostly just thought it was hilarious and hadn't given any real consideration to what that misinformation could do out there in the wilds of cyberspace.
Vince had his fun, we had our fun, and then all of a sudden, my mom called me and said, your grandma wants to talk to you. She found something online. And then the wheels in my head started turning of what could she have found online? Because I think the Good Luck Chuck thing had kind of simmered down. And I decided to call my grandma. I said, hey, Grandma, I found out you learned something about me. What's going on? And she said, yes, I typed in your name on the internet and I found out that you sound like you're the inspiration for a movie called Good Luck Chuck. Is this true? Why have you never told me this before? And then that was like, then the alarm bells went off and like, oh my gosh, like this is going to potentially impact me and not quite so funny of a way that I thought it would. So then I had to explain, obviously, to my grandma, no, my friend, he's just fooling around. He decided to put this online, but it's not really a thing. And don't worry, Grandma, I'm not the inspiration for this movie. It's just a little prank. And then, she was, okay, that's good. Be careful what you do online and post online. And I'm like, oh, my grandma actually realizes that before I did. That's good to know.
Well, it's funny that you were sort of in that headspace of being like a 22, 23-year-old kid and being like, this is hilarious. And then all of a sudden it like snapped it into the frame of reference of an adult of like, oh, dang.
In that moment, I grew up.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
Flustered by that call with his grandmother, Ben hopped onto Google and punched in his name and was horrified to find dozens of websites that still referenced him as the inspiration for the character in the Dane Cook movie. A few fan pages here and there, but mostly what appeared to be websites run by bots that copied Wikipedia pages verbatim for the purpose of earning ad revenue at scale from the clicks these pages would generate.
It started out small. There'd be one or two or three, and then there was dozens, and then the bots just kept crawling the pages and multiplying to the point where then you would Google your name and it would be pages. It was the top responses, because then they started multiplying off themselves. Mm-hmm. They just copied themselves, and you'd have copies of websites where it all just said, this movie is based on the well-known and notorious womanizer, Benjamin Kollenbroich, the protagonist of the book, the Man from Fort Atkinson, and it would go on like that. And that's what got picked, like that snippet got picked up. And so when you Google your name, just pages and pages of results, full legal name, your real hometown, and then describing you in a pejorative manner, which was the funny part, but then it just didn't stop.
What had started as a classic prank among buddies had reached the point where it wasn't really funny anymore, once Vince realized he couldn't put that genie back in the bottle.
I was scared a little bit, because I was scared that it really was going to have some effects on you.
And they had both reached a point in their careers where there wasn't really a tolerance for youthful hijinks.
You were applying some places.
Oh, yeah.
And so
because I was just an intern.
I was afraid. I was like, I had started law school, and so I was spending a lot of time there. And so we weren't seeing each other as much. And so I was just, I got afraid like this could actually impact you.
You were learning about how I could sue you, maybe.
You were learning about libel and slander.
No, I didn't want him like actually losing a job, or someone actually thinking this is real and it was really about you. And so I do kind of remember then I was like, okay, I need to delete this.
Vince took down the Man from Fort Atkinson website, deleted the fictitious book's Wikipedia page, and even removed some of the reviews and comments that he'd left scattered across the internet. But try as he might, there's nothing he could do about the bot sites, which proved to be especially hardy in 2010's internet ecosystem.
There's nothing you could do, so it was just kind of waiting for it to go away.
It would be a stretch to say it was to his credit, but Ben did try to take it all in stride.
I mean, I was telling you, I tried to use it to my advantage to pick up girls and go on dates, be like, hey, you're going on a date with the guy who is the inspiration for Good Luck Chuck.
You were famous.
Check it out. I'm famous.
Did that work for you?
It did a little bit until my now wife caught on that I wasn't. But hey, I got married. So it worried me a little bit, but I don't know. I was young and dumb and didn't care as much as maybe I should have. But Vince cared, I think, a little bit more than I did.
Ultimately, other than those embarrassing moments with his grandmother and the snark from his now wife, Ben somehow made it into relative adulthood despite the shadow of his internet notoriety. And as we look back at it now, 15 years later, it seems almost quaint that Ben was able to come out of this whole thing somehow unscathed. The story of the Man from Fort Atkinson has become kind of a personal relic for us, of a time when the internet was a little more innocent of a place.
It was during that sweet spot in the aughts, right in the middle, where probably more believable frankly, I think more believable back then. That was during a time where you kind of believed what you read on the internet. Nowadays, I don't think anyone believes anything they read on the internet, or they don't care whether it's real.
Yeah.
Now people are worried about like an internet footprint. We weren't really aware of that at that.
That wasn't something that had occurred to us as, we say now the internet is forever, but it didn't seem that way. It wasn't something that we thought about back then, right?
Yeah, not at that point.
No, people are posting dumb pictures on Facebook all the time that you probably shouldn't be posting these days. So yeah, I think that's right that, we didn't think about it too much.
Fortunately for Ben, in this case, it doesn't seem like the internet is forever. Eventually, maybe 5-6 years ago, nobody's really sure when, the last of those bot pages seems to have disappeared completely from the search results.
I'm just surprised that at this point, it's not somewhere.
Yeah, at least on one
corner,
site.
you Google it, although I think it actually might have more to do with search engines than it does with whether it actually exists out there. There might be websites out there that exist. They just don't show up in a search result. But
Google and other search engines have gotten better about monitoring for quality of the sources that they reference back. And it's possible that those bot curated websites that essentially were just crawlers trying to scrape up a few cents worth of clicks off of something that they thought people would Google, that those are no longer indexed by Google because Google realized that they were not quality. So it is possible they might still be out. If you had the link to that website, you could probably still log on and find it, but Google's just not referencing people to it anymore.
I was thinking today too, like if ChatGPT existed at that time, it's not thinking on its own. It's thinking based on what it finds online. So if you looked my name up in AI now and that existed at that time, it would just tell you a completely fabricated story about myself. And people trust AI, maybe that's not telling you the whole picture either. It's just pulling things from what they find online too, right? So I was thinking about that as well. Be a different story, I think, if you did this 15 years later.
For close to a decade, when you Googled Ben Kollenbroich's name, you'd see a flood of search results that erroneously cited him as the notorious womanizer who inspired a crappy movie in 2007. But even before they disappeared altogether, Ben has spent the last 15 years gradually displacing those pages from the search results, with tales of his professional accomplishments, news of his marriage to his wonderful and patient wife, Erin, and even athletic milestones as a runner and ultimate frisbee enthusiast. It's a story that we all still cherish, but also one that we've, thankfully, had the opportunity to grow beyond. Older, wiser, and maybe even a little less dumb.
It's part of the reason that I love this story so much, and part of the reason that for years I would think of this story and be like, oh, I wonder if that stuff is still up there about Ben. And I would Google you and it would pop up at the top of the search results and it would bring me so much joy. It would light up my day. And then I stopped doing that and thankfully it all went away. But as I was getting set to have this conversation with you guys, when I logged on to Google and typed in Ben Kollenbroich, the man from Fort Atkinson, I was a little bit sad. I was happy for you, but I was a little bit sad in my heart that it didn't pop up in the search results anymore.
I'm not famous anymore.
You know what's messed up? I was just thinking in my head, it would be really funny this weekend if I recreated the Wikipedia. And then I had to stop myself and be like, no, you're just going to do it again.
Yeah, the little angel and devil on each shoulder.
Someone's going to Google your name again. And yet in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm going to do this again.
No, I did the same thing. Like every so often I would Google my name and be like, oh, what's it look like? But I haven't done it in probably 5 or 6 years. So yeah, when you asked us to do this, I Googled my name and yeah, it wasn't on there. But
how did that make you feel?
I felt like I have passed on to another part of my life. You know, that phase is done. The good luck Chuck Benjamin Kollenbroich is done. And now I'm on to whatever other movie I can inspire.
A responsible member of the community, happily married for more than 10 years now with 2 beautiful daughters at home.
Yeah, so that's my phase. Maybe Dane Cook is in the same position. He and I are just mirroring each other.
What is funny is that when I post this, there will be a transcript and that will be indexed by Google. And so Ben Kollenbroich, the man from Fort Atkinson, will be a Googleable term once again.
I will return to my former glory.
Thanks once again to Ben and Vince for retelling this tale with me one more time. After telling it dozens, maybe hundreds of times over the last 15 years already, this is the first time that we've actually sat down to document it for posterity, so it felt important to do that. I'll note as well, though, that we did never use Vince's last name in this podcast because, like Ben, he has also matured into a productive member of society and does have a professional reputation to protect, which is something that I begrudge no one. But this is such a wonderful relic of a bygone era of the internet. I am grateful to both of these guys for allowing me to document it, and of course, for their friendship over the years. Thank you as well for listening. The fact that I have still got folks tuning in after 64 episodes of Lead Balloon, it's the reason that I keep coming back after 5 years now. 6 years. Oh my God, it's 6 years because I was counting. I mean, we took a year off, but then like 2020 counts. So it's 2020, 21, 22, 23. Although we did do a couple of episodes in 24, but it was just a couple. Mostly took that year off. 5 or 6 years. So while we're on the topic, a couple of quick updates about the show itself. First, I am excited to announce that Lead Balloon was named a finalist in the Signal Awards for Best Creativity and Marketing Podcast. Add that to the past accolades from the Podcast Academy Awards, the Webbies, and Adweek, and yeah, I feel pretty good calling that a nice little cherry on top of a busy year here at PodCamp Media. So that is actually going to do it for this season of the show. I'm going to take a little bit of time to wind down this year as we roll into the holidays, but I would love any feedback that you want to send my way. Dusty@podcampmedia.com is the email address. As a for instance, just one thing I'm wondering about, this year we did a lot of video episodes. This took me away from the more immersive audio format of years past, and it was also a ton of extra work. Was it worth the effort? Well, from a metric standpoint, I'm still kind of on the fence. So, want to know your thoughts. Video, yay or nay? Do you prefer the old school This American Lifestyle audio episodes, or should we keep doing the stuff on YouTube? Or should I just kind of really follow my heart from episode to episode? But also would love your thoughts on anything else about the show, potential topic ideas, opportunities for partnership, whatever you got. And I will be back in your feed before too long with bonus content and even some new episodes eventually here. If you want to do me a super solid, share your favorite episodes with your friends or colleagues, because people love getting unsolicited podcast episode links in their text messages. Trust me on that. Take it to the bank. In all seriousness, your personal seal of approval does help me grow this show. It's the best tool I have available for that. It also gives me a reason to get back after it in 2026 here. Lead Balloon is produced by PodCamp Media, where we provide branded podcast production solutions for businesses. Our podcast studios are located in the heart of beautiful downtown Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We work with brands all over North America to help them launch and build podcasts that work. Do give me a call if you need a podcast for your brand or your association or whatever, because that work is what pays my bills here. And of course, check out our website, podcampmedia.com. Music for this episode by Brandon Lane, cast of characters, Famous Cats, Ghost Beats, Midnight Daydream, Moments, and Strength to Last. Editorial assistance from Matt Covarrubias. And until the next time, folks, thanks for listening. I'm Dusty Weiss.